Okay, I think we'll get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Adrienne Nussbaum. I'm the Associate Dean and Director of the Office of International Students and Scholars. Thank you for joining us tonight for this exciting panel with some of our wonderful international students. This event is part of International Education Week, also known as IEW. Hopefully you have received some emails about that from me and other folks around campus. IEW is actually an initiative of the U.S. Department of State and U.S. Department of Education, who encourage universities to take at least 1 week out a year to celebrate things international. At BC, IEW is co-sponsored by our office, the OISS, the Office of Global Education, and the Office of Global Engagement. If you haven't gone to our calendar yet, I strongly encourage you to do so. It's at bc.edu/IEW. Maybe somebody could put that in the chat. We have over 40 events happening throughout the month of November. Most of them are this week, but there are a couple that will continue throughout the month of November. Our theme this year is healing along the fault lines, enduring crisis, maintaining resilience, strengthening engagement, and ensuring justice. It's actually a continuation of the theme from last year. We thought it made sense to continue having discussions around those themes since we still are in the midst of many different crises in the US and around the world. We did do an international student panel last year for IEW on a similar topic, and it went so well that we decided to do one again this year. So I want to welcome our international student panelists. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, and then I will tell you a little bit about how the program will work. So I'm just going to go in the order that I see you on the screen. So Father Jean, do you want to start first? You need to unmute, Father Jean.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
I am Father Jean Okie Ike, a priest of the Catholic Diocese of Nsukka in Nigeria.
And
a student of theology at the School of Theology and Ministry. I'm doing my licentiate.
Great, thank you so much. Alice, do you want to go next?
Hi everyone, my name is Qingyang Zhou and I go by Alice. I'm a junior in MCAS studying psychology, and I'm really excited to talk with all of you and share some of my experiences and perspectives about the international problems. Yeah.
Thank you. Patrick?
Hi everyone, I'm Patrick. I'm a doctoral student in School of Social Work at BC. So I originally come from Hong Kong and would like to share different experience like here, like in Hong Kong, or during the summer, I actually do some global travel. So I will share some of my experience.
Perfect, thank you. Anna?
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm from Brazil. I'm an undergraduate student in MCAS. I'm a sophomore studying computer science, and I'm so excited to share some of my experiences here as an international student getting here.
Great, thank you. And finally, Carolina.
Hi everyone, I'm Carolina. I'm from Mexico and I'm a graduate student in the Learning Engineering program, and very excited to share my experiences from the educational side of the perspective.
Great, thank you so much. So in thinking of the global crisis happening around the world now, we're going to be covering a few different topics. The first one is going to be, of course, COVID-19, the pandemic. We've asked the panelists to talk about how it has impacted them personally, but also how it's impacted their home countries. We're so focused on what's happening in the US, it's really important to hear the impact that it's been having in countries around the world. We'll then transition to briefly talk about some immigration issues that international students face, partly because of COVID, but also just in general, some of the immigration challenges that they deal with on a regular basis. And then we were going to move on to the very important topic of racism in the United States, which continues to be a major issue, especially for many of our international students. And if we have time, we might go on and talk about climate change. So if you have a question for any of the panelists, feel free to put it in the chat. We're going to have the panelists all speak first on the different topics, and then we'll save time for Q&A at the end of the program. But in the meantime, if you want to put something in the chat, you're welcome to do so. And if not, when we get to the Q&A, you can use the raise hand function or just shout out if you want to ask a question. So again, our first topic, which makes sense, of course, is going to be COVID-19 and the global pandemic. We're going to start with Carolina, who's going to tell us a little bit about how it has impacted Mexico. So Carolina, please start.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. My personal experience with the pandemic has been in the educational side, and I've been working with teachers and different NGOs in Mexico that have been experiencing different sides of the pandemic. So I would like to talk about how in Mexico there's different contexts, and each of these contexts have been affected in a different way. Starting with the vaccination process, compared to the US, the process in Mexico has been very slow. Also, the vaccines that are available are very diverse. Some of the vaccines are not yet approved by the FDA. For example, we have vaccines that are Pfizer and AstraZeneca that are approved by FDA, but also like CanSino and Sputnik are not yet approved. So that has now encountering some other challenges with traveling and so on. In my experience, I had to get vaccinated before coming, but the population that of my age was barely getting vaccinated at the time, so the rate was very slow. And the process now, it's unclear if there is going to be boosters for the first group, that was the elderly and healthcare workers, or if children are going to get vaccinated as well. So that is in the vaccine part of the pandemic and the status in Mexico right now. One major issue affecting education is that the teachers were vaccinated with this vaccine CanSino that is not yet approved, and that the results have not been very successful. So that is affecting education as well, and it might affect like if teachers are going to get vaccinated again or not. Teachers were one of the first groups that were vaccinated in Mexico because there was an urge to open schools. Schools in Mexico were closed for over 50 weeks. It's been one of the countries that had longer school closures worldwide. So this has affected learning in different ways. One of the major reasons was because schools hadn't the right infrastructure to deploy education at a large scale level, specifically talking about public schools. And the national strategy was streaming TV programs that had like courses aligned with the national curriculum for primary and secondary levels. So that was kind of emergency thing that the government did, but at the end it stayed like for over 1.5 years, and no other compensatory strategy has been promoted from the official National Ministry of Education. Although a lot of NGOs have been working to ensure education, and they have come together as well as teachers and parents and educational communities to try to compensate this learning loss and bring out solutions that are effective for learning. one study illustrated that according to the national statistics in Mexico, the learning loss in the south of Mexico, that is where I'm from, could be like an impact like for over 3 school years. So that it's a lot, and that it's one of the major issues that Mexico is encountering right now. And I think mainly is because of the access of technology. Not all families have enough internet access or devices to be connected and online teachers with their teachers online and their school online, as in the US. So many people have been out of school and losing learning because of this reason. Some households have one device to share between all the family, especially talking about public educational communities and systems. So that lack of resources has impacted their access to education. One of the main sectors that has been left out is the girls sector, like girls out of school, and this has incremented and exacerbated that population missing school, because some families prioritize boys over girls in their education, and some other barriers as access, preconceptions, child labor, cultural roles, and child and adolescents becoming pregnant are some of the barriers that have been exacerbated for girls in education. I don't want to talk all bad about the situation in Mexico. This has also bring a lot of awareness on the bright side, and I must say that Mexico is a very resilient country. It always comes out of crisis. We are a very collaborative community that we always help each other to thrive. And I want to highlight that this crisis, talking about resilience, has been on the bright side a good thing, because it's clear that organizations, teachers, students, and families are willing to learn, and that they are putting all of the resources to find opportunities to learn and don't miss school, even though the national infrastructure is not as good. Also, a lot of creative ideas have emerged from teachers. Some teachers travel to visit their students to their houses and deliver in-hand materials so that they don't miss the homework. Some families have buy internet packages to download the homework and be able to submit it. And there has been an increase of awareness about educational issues and technologies. Me speaking as a learning engineer, I must say that innovation is a thing that has been on the table, specifically in private schools more rapidly than in public schools, but it also has rapidly enhanced creativity for teachers to use technology and open that perspective that had been, unless it should have taken a lot of years. And there's also an awareness of prioritizing the importance of socio-emotional aspects of education and focusing on strategies on that, and the opportunities to cooperate with families. Some teachers I interviewed to close up have said that this opportunity has bring them adaptability, new ways to teach. They have getting closer to families. They unlearn and relearn new ways of teaching, and they have been more persistent and patient. They have also discovered their creativity and need to continue learning to face this new crisis. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carolina. Definitely fits within our theme of maintaining resilience. So I appreciate you talking about that. So Anna, we all heard in the US a lot of information about COVID in Brazil. So it will be interesting to hear their perspective and experience from somebody from Brazil. So if you could go next, that would be great. Thank you.
All right. As many of you may know, Brazil didn't respond so well with the pandemic. So the main reason was our president. He is a very from the right political side, and he didn't believe in the pandemic. Basically, he refused to wear masks. He encourages his followers to go out in the street and gather together, and he endorsed medicine that wasn't scientifically proven. And that really took a blow on us because we were one of the countries that had the biggest death rates. And the only reason it wasn't worse, it was because the government from each state intervened. So we could hold on together. But from the bright side, we took a long time to receive the vaccines. But Brazil has a very big vaccination culture. A lot of people actually really believe in the vaccine. So when the vaccine started for people under 18, I think 99% of people under 18 that are eligible for the vaccines are already vaccinated with at least the first dose. So we have a very strong vaccination measurement now. We have a very strong culture of vaccination. We have even like a little character for kids to get vaccinated. It's great. But with this, the Brazilian Senate just charged Bolsonaro, that is our president, with crimes against humanity. At the same time, he awarded himself a merit medal of science. It is not very great. But we are getting back on our feet. Now, a lot of our population is vaccinated, but in regard to public education and public schools, from 26 states in my country, only 9 states open public schools. So a lot of public schools are not open yet, and a lot of universities just started their online education. They're not planning to come back anytime soon. We still need to wear masks everywhere, even though the vaccinations are high. So we are getting there. I believe that we will get there. And next year we will have elections from 2022. So hopefully we'll get better. But for me, as an international student, coming to the US was very hard. Since I'm a sophomore, I couldn't get into the country, couldn't get a visa for my freshman year. So I couldn't come to the university my freshman year. And I think that it really impacted me in like how I transitioned to BC, because since I was a sophomore, everybody who was a freshman were already like knew each other and knew the campus, and I didn't know anyone. I didn't know the campus. I was very lost in my first couple of weeks. It really affected my transition here, and it is pretty hard to make friends when everybody already know each other. I needed to get out of my introvert self and try to talk to people as much as possible. But now it's better. It's not 100%, but it's much better. But to get a vaccine to come here was very hard because BC was very, let's say, not clear about the vaccinations requirements for international students. And since Brazil was very behind in like vaccination, when I needed to be fully vaccinated, my age group was not being vaccinated yet. And I maybe could get the first dose of Pfizer, but I couldn't get the second, and I couldn't get the second in a different country. And we didn't have Johnson, that is 1 dose. And we have a lot of non-FDA approved vaccines like CoronaVac. So it was very hard. I even sent a very passive aggressive email to BC once, but it all worked out in the end. I actually got my vaccine here in the US, in New York, as soon as I got in here. But now everybody can get the vaccine in Brazil now. So that's good. And we are getting like the 3rd dose, I think. That's it, I think. That was my experience with the scene and trying to get into the country.
Thank you. Yeah,
very hard.
we've heard a lot from the sophomores who had to do their freshman year online, how really difficult the transition was and such a terrible way to start your college career online and in the middle of a pandemic. So we're glad you were able to get the vaccine and to come and that you're here now. So thank you very much. So Patrick, I think you were next. We're going to talk about a little bit about Hong Kong and also your personal experiences around COVID.
Yeah, for sure. I think I will use some personal story to talk about how I faced the COVID pandemic situation. So basically, this is already my 4th year in the United States. Before I come here, I spent 2 years in Michigan. So almost like most of the time in the United States, I'm dealing with COVID. Okay, anyway, so I would say something about Hong Kong first. So vaccination rate is pretty high. I think it's even higher than Hong Kong, higher than the United States. And particularly, I think it's because of the policy. For example, we have quarantine for 21 days if I need to go back. So that's why I haven't seen my mom and my family for a while. Yeah, because I think 21 days is too much to get stuck in the hotel and pay by myself, you know. And more about the life in Hong Kong. People eat in restaurants. They are open, but they have limited seats, different regulation. And for example, like my friend, they got married in Hong Kong and recently, so they postponed, but finally they decided to still organize it because they don't want to postpone forever. And so they kind of do some alternatives, like they offer remote options, so actually I can join. And also, for example, like the church there, like they have limited space, for example, like limited for just 100 people or 50, maybe, I forget exact number of people inside the church for the ceremony. So anyways, but in general, like mask is like very common in daily life, and also people have rumor on vaccination, like they don't trust the vaccination. Some people, they don't trust the vaccination. And even like some social media, they say like after they took the vaccine, like some people dead because of heart attack or things like that. But okay, I don't want to do any analysis here, but I just want to say like, okay, someone that because of, I mean, after taking the vaccine, but who knows about the real reason, you know, because of health, because of physical things. So, but anyways, but there's a lot of rumor in Hong Kong. That's the real thing. And yeah, so about the work, people like normally some like direct service sector, they change to remote, but some of them still in person and more in person right now. So yeah, that's similar to US actually, but yeah. And second piece I want to share is about my travel in in the pandemic. So actually, I spent 1.5 months in Peru this summer, which is not recommended, okay? Because it's still in pandemic, but I'm a travel person, so anyways, but I need to vaccinate it. I need to have the COVID test, the PCR test result before I take the flight there. And they have a policy at that time, like they need to wear 2 masks, like not only 1, but 2 face masks, and also with the shield when you take the flight. And sometimes in a mall or in some public area, in a restaurant, they will require you to have 2 masks too. And COVID really very harmful to the economy there. And luckily I have the opportunity to, I don't know whether you heard about it, Machu Picchu in Peru, very famous. And there is a trail there, like 4 days hiking to Machu Picchu called Inca Trail. Amazing view, amazing history. And I visited there like the first day, they reopened the Inca Trail, which is amazing. They have a ceremony in the entrance, like some local government official person, they talk, they have interview, they play music, things like that. So I really feel they are very happy to reopen the Inca Trail or different kind of industry or tourists, particularly in Peru, because some part of Peru, they really rely on tourism. So particularly some area close to Canyon, very popular. Not only Grand Canyon, their canyon is called Coca Canyon. It's awesome. It's very gorgeous. But that area is very, how to say, they describe it, some local people describe it, it's kind of like a dead time right now because especially last year because of COVID. Lots of people even like they leave the town, they leave their home to other city because there's no tourists there. They cannot survive. So anyway, so some of my experience. And last thing, a little bit about this couple of years. So most of the thing become virtual, and I don't know whether you folks remember there's some policy thing in the United States, like I talk about if you do not take any class that needs you to be in the United States, you are not allowed to be here. But I think later on the government changed the policy. But that's why no matter what, we have a so-called hybrid class in our doctoral program at that time. And we wear masks in class. Some of my friends still get stuck in other countries, cannot get a visa because of their local government. And things like that, I missed the chance to have my orientation in my doc program. And fun fact is my school asked us, my cohorts, to organize a campus tour for the first year student, but we did not really have that experience. We are not really familiar with the campus. So that's pretty fun anyways, but finally we share something that, there's some, well, our campus is so beautiful. So anyways, but yeah, that's my personal experience in this pandemic.
Great, thank you so much. We got to hear about Hong Kong and Peru, so that was wonderful. And Father Jean, yes, please tell us about Nigeria.
Just like the COVID-19 pandemic affected other countries of the world, it also affected Nigeria, do I say, in a very special way. First of all, Nigerians have trust deficits where their leaders are. The present government led by Muhammad Buhari, Nigerians don't trust them. And initially, even when it was everywhere that COVID was around, when the government was announcing it, because of the trust deficit, people didn't believe them. So it was a little bit difficult. But true to type, I don't know how it happened. When eventually someone brought in the COVID into the country, the whole country was shut down, just like many other countries of the world. We are all locked up in our houses. In fact, we are temporarily made prisoners in our own houses because we couldn't come out. And businesses, shops were closed down. Social life came to a halt. A lot of things were affected. And people were hungry. In Nigeria, we have the artisans, those who depend on their daily income to feed. Many of them roadside sellers, maybe vulcanizers, people who go out to do some little jobs in order to make money for the upkeep of their families. Because there was the lockdown, businesses came to a halt, and there were no openings for such persons to go out to work and make money so that they can buy food for their families. And people were really hungry. People were really hungry. They couldn't feed themselves. And when eventually the government promised to give some palliative, many of us heard about the billions of naira they said they had voted for the palliatives, but many of us didn't get anything. But the expenses came to several billions, and up to today, some of us are still wondering what happened to that money. For sure, people are accusing of the government of using the COVID trouble to make money for themselves in Nigeria. Then schools were also shut down, starting from the nursery school, primary school to the secondary, and even the universities. And because they were at home, a lot of learning time was lost. Some of the schools tried the online lectures, but they didn't last for a very long time. One, we don't have the very right infrastructure back in Nigeria, maybe to stream the lectures. And then even in some places where they had the networks that could carry it, we had also other problems. Not all the families were able to afford a laptop, a computer. Not all of the families have a good phone that they can use in connecting their children to the lectures, for the lectures. Even some of the schools were not rich enough to have the Wi-Fi facility or the network that parents would connect to. So we had a very long list of challenges, troubles that many of us thought we are not going to overcome. And part of it also is that we have power failure in Nigeria, not in here, like here in the US, where you have 24 hours power supply. Even those who had the laptops or the phones or the computer, sometimes don't even have the power, the electricity to power them. And some of the rich families that could maybe put on their generating sets, you also needed to spend a lot of money to buy gas or diesel or fuel, and then the maintenance of the generating sets. The underlying thing is that most of the schools hadn't the internet facilities that they needed to stream the online lectures. And the cost also was much because the parents also could not foot the bill. So they all went back home and then folded their arms, waiting for whatever time or whichever time that the government would unlock the whole place and that life would come back to normalcy again. People died. We don't have maybe good healthcare facilities like you have here in America. And sometimes people go for the local ways of treatment. They go for the over-the-counter drugs. People even go for self-medication, partly because of poverty too. So even when the COVID came, those who had underlying sicknesses, who couldn't have enough food to eat, their sicknesses, their conditions were exacerbated, that we recorded even other deaths, even more than we're supposed to have, from the COVID itself. In fact, our own pandemic was more or less hunger, caused by hunger. Our own pandemic, so to say, was from hunger in many parts of the country. I don't know what to say. Fortunately for us, we were able to survive it. I don't want to say that perhaps we have higher immunity or better immunity more than some countries of the world, because initially people had postulated that, since we have had so many deaths in Europe and in America, where you had the best of medical facilities, when COVID comes down to Africa, the whole of Africa will be wiped away in under 24 hours. Unfortunately, it didn't happen that way, because our immune system appears to be stronger, even to have resisted the COVID, because all our lives have been treating malaria, have been treating the typhoid fever, they've been treating the cold, our own kind of flu that we have here. And it's like from childhood, we all developed that immunity that we were able to survive the COVID more than people expected. When eventually we had the opportunity to get the vaccines, people still didn't trust our government. People were scared. They were saying they have come to give us poison, they inject poisons into our system. And that was practically true, but people were even afraid of methods of preserving them. Since we hadn't a good power supply, people were scared of going to have those vaccines because they were afraid of because we learned that some of them had to be kept under certain temperature. we were not very sure. So many people were scared. And eventually, when some of us made up our minds to go and be vaccinated, the vaccines were finished. And myself, when I wanted to have myself vaccinated, I couldn't get it. And it was on arrival in the US here that I had the Johnson & Johnson. So it was not all that very easy for us, but Nigerians are resilient. We still have, in spite of all the challenges, we still have ways of surviving our troubles. From the point of view of an international student, it also affected me. I was supposed to be in the US last year. That was when I got my admission. But because the whole place was locked down, embassies were closed, I couldn't go for the visa interview. I applied to pick some of the lectures online. I discovered the transmission was not very, very wonderful. Sometimes I get connected, I can't hear what the teacher teaches and the professors are teaching in the classrooms. It was really difficult. And because of the change in time, because of the gap in time, I find myself all alone, all awake in the dead of the night where I was staying. Sometimes while people were sleeping, I'll find myself awake by 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Sometimes there'll be no light. I will be struggling even to have keep my laptop on my computer. I also suffered from buying data, buying facilities, the Wi-Fi, internet facilities, so that I'll be able to be connected. It was not really easy. At a point, I had to opt out. I had to write BC, explaining my challenges, and ask that my own admission be deferred. And that was granted me. It was not really easy. And eventually, even when my admission was, was extended back to me again, I picked it up, got my I-20, but because of the lockdown, the embassy had long backlog. They had a backlog that many people who wanted to travel within the COVID, all of us queued up, and the embassies couldn't take in all of us. But I had to apply for the expedited visa interview, and I was granted. When I eventually got my visa, I had only about maybe just 7 days to leave Nigeria. I found myself hurried into US, came in 2 a.m. Saturday. By Monday, the 30th of August, I was there in DC. I was able to find my way to the place. I discovered I was tired. I missed my way coming. I suffered from jet lag. I was exhausted. I was really exhausted. But thank God I'm here and we are squaring up with the situation. As I earlier said, Nigerians are always resilient in whatever, so we are up to the task. Thank you.
Thank you. We seem to have a recurring theme of resilience, which has been a big part of surviving the last year and a half. So I'm looking at the time, and panelists, I'm going to move on to race and racism because I want to make sure we get to that topic. And if we have time, we'll circle back to immigration and then climate change. But that is, I think, one of the most important topics to talk about, and I want to make sure we have time to get to that. So on your outline, if you could just move to that section, and we're going to actually start with Alice talking about race and racism, and the impact on her being a student from China in the United States. So Alice, please.
Thank you, Adrian. And now I would like to transition from COVID to racism and race issues in America. So I think for this topic, I might use some of my personal experience as example. But basically, I'm from China and I grew up there and I studied until high school, and most of the people in my community are really homogeneous. That means I seldom see people who has different faces like from me, and like different ethnicities and other backgrounds. We are really a close community, and we're basically like hang out with each other every day, and it's a really close relationship. But when I went to the US for summer school and even BC for studying here for 4 years, I was actually shocked at first when I see people who have different ethnicities and different skin colors, and who speak completely different languages from me, even though I learned English as a child. But when I actually came here, I've just found the English is so different. Like they speak so fast and I can't catch all of them. So definitely when I first at BC, I was really afraid to speak out. And I even like assumed that others might judge my pronunciation in English. And sometimes when I see like people have different behaviors than me, like maybe hanging out like too often, or like speaking to like having like too outspoken speeches, I just felt that like think of the American people as strange at first as well. So like at first it's really tough, and I feel that there are certain things I need to overcome in order to really bridge the differences and to learn about America and learn from each other. So I took some actions. I joined groups at BC. I was really involved in singing, piano, and theater. And I even like went to activities like performances and ball games, and just trying to like speak with American students as much as possible, both to practice English and to learn about their cultures and like their lives. And I think I also like sign up for courses which are discussion based, just kind of pushing myself out of comfort zone. And the courses often just composed of only 1 or 2 Chinese students. So I have plenty of room to improve myself in those discussions, because at first I just found like the American students are really good at speech and they have excellent ideas I don't have. But just through like opening my eyes to what the local communities are doing, I learned from them, and I even made some efforts throughout the whole year. And I think after like the freshman year, I definitely understand them better and to find some common grounds instead of just differences. And also I see a lot of like things that we could learn from each other, and just having those communications really enabled me to see better solutions than each of us could do individually. In sophomore year, definitely I went back to China, and the first semester I didn't interact with so much American students because of my concerns for COVID. And I think that semester I didn't make that much friends, and just like lose my contact with a lot of American peers. And when I went back to China, I think definitely I interact more with Chinese people. So when I went back to America this semester, I think the problems about racial differences come out again because the 1 year gap. And I see like difficulties in class discussion and some of the difficulties in terms of friends. But I continue what I was doing for the freshman year. And like this time, instead of just going out to every event, I like take some of the responsibility for several clubs and even do some works. So being in not just as a participant, but also like a facilitator or leader really helped me to interact with the American student in a deeper way, and like maybe having some deeper conversations in terms of their values of COVID, like their learning styles and just what they're reading in their leisure times. And through this kind of deep conversation and interactions, I think I learn about them and understand them better, and to even being able to think the way they are thinking. And this way, I don't think the appearance matters anymore. Like, even though we have different skin colors, I'm from China, but I still consider her as a good friend. And I assume they consider me as well. And the racism just disappears in the process. We didn't push anything. We discover something inside each of us, and find common grounds and be able to even exchange ideas and to find better solutions for some problems. So I think, like, throughout this 3 year, I'm a junior right now. From moving from the initial like racial differences and the focus on stereotypes in America to right now, I have more friends, like even have deep conversations with American people, and being able to work with them. I think one key thing that helped me to move this step is to understand both sides. And as a Chinese people, when I came here, I just tried to understand them as much as possible by doing what they're doing and learning what they're learning. And once I understand them, we have topics to talk about with one another. And I could also share my Chinese cultures and how China did an excellent job in controlling COVID, in some of the Chinese policies as well. And the American people could learn from us as well. They could wear masks or not going to the social gatherings that often in terms of COVID. So finally, I think, like, bridging the differences requires time, patience, and efforts, and be proactive to reach out and to communicate. And after the process, even though it's a long and it's not an easy process, but the results are much better than we thought. And we could find like so much hope in the international intercultural communication. And I believe that as young people, we are able to bridge the differences. Thank you for that. Yeah,
Great.
that's what I want to
Thank you,
share.
Alice. Thank you. I've known Alice since her freshman year, and I'm so pleased to see how she's transitioned to BC, even through the challenges of COVID and being here, going home, not being able to come back, and then coming back. Okay, we're going to continue on the topic of race and racism in the US. So we're going to go back to you, Father Jean, if you could share some of your experiences coming to the US. Yeah.
Well, I speak from the background of a student, a Nigerian who is just about 2 months in America. I know I have been a Black man, but I never knew I was really Black until I came to America. I never knew it meant something to be on the Black scale until I got to America. Over the years, I had read in so many literature books. I had also heard stories about the evils of racism in America and in other parts of the world. And today, here I am, face to face with the people we can today refer to as racists. We are face to face with them. And I'm having those experiences firsthand. Other times I read them up in books. Today, I can talk about my own experience and experiences. The first ugly experience I had, even from the very day I was trying to find my way to BC from where I am presently living, I noticed that people were avoiding me in public places, especially, let me call them the whites. In the buses and train stations, I find myself, people refusing to sit beside me in the buses, people refusing to sit beside me in trains. And people chose to stand while I had unoccupied seats around me. So many empty seats around me. People would prefer to stand up instead of just sitting down or sitting beside this black man. Well, these were the experience I had from people like say they are whites, people who are not blacks, so to say. And each time I found myself on the streets, people carefully give me a distance. When they come closer to me, they make sure they are very far away from me. And if by chance I bump into anybody on the streets, they get afraid, they get agitated. And I have continued to ask myself what the problem really is, because I see myself as harmless, but people see me and they are scared, they are afraid. And I've been asking myself what the problem is. Well, I tried to share some of my experiences with some of the friends I've made, and I only discovered it is because of my skin color, because my skin color is black. And for God's sake, I never painted my skin black. And even if any person who has any other color didn't paint himself or herself, whether he's red or white or brown, nobody chose any kind of color that he's wearing on his skin today. So that I am black is maybe perhaps the way God wants it. I didn't paint my skin. And today I have found myself being grouped among those who can be referred to as, people of color. Today, I can be regarded as person of color. And I ask whether white is also not a color. Because in our primary school days, we have the list of colors. White is one of those colors. So perhaps being white here is no longer a color. Maybe it means some other thing. And each time I think about my experiences, it brings to my mind what Olga Segura, I read up one of his articles. He says that every day in America, all it takes is one person to see your body and your color, to see your skin as a threat. And he says that Black people are viewed by white people as suspicious, as dangerous, as unworthy. And I keep on wondering, what makes me unworthy? Why do these people think I am unworthy? People want me to live as an inferior person, but I don't think I would honestly accept to find myself as inferior. They may have had other opportunities I do not have, but that does not make me an inferior human being. Before God, I am never inferior. And God knows, as long as I stay in America, I will never accept to be an inferior human being. So, well, for me, it's also another opportunity to improve upon my learning. And I have vowed to make out something good from this experience, so that whenever I go back to my country, Nigeria, there are also other pockets of discrimination in Nigeria, where we have people discriminating against either. We have some caste system, some other discriminations, and even tribalism. So I've made up my mind. I am going to make out something good, very good, from this experience that I'm personally having. And I'll be able to tell my story back home, and I'll be able to get my people together and tell them about the evils of discrimination, the evils of sidelining other people, the evil of dehumanizing a fellow human being, because racism dehumanizes the other person and strips from any other person every form of humanity, any form of dignity. And for me as a Christian, it contradicts the teaching that we are equal before God and that we are made in God's own image and likeness, the teaching of the Imago Dei. And I ask that all of us must join hands together to set race aside, to set languages aside, color, nationality, and then so that we'll be able to demand respect for human dignity for all human beings created in God's own image and likeness. Racism is an existential evil that all of us must join hands together to fight against. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Father John, for sharing those experiences and really opening up. I really appreciate that. And I'm sure everyone else who's heard your words did as well. So thank you. Patrick, we're going to stay on this topic of racism and go to you next.
Okay, thank you. So I think similar to what Father Jane or Alice shared, like when talk about race or racism, my first impression when I come to the United States, one big change is I am a majority in my home. Everyone looks similar to me. I mean, at least appearance. And then right now I'm in a country, I consider myself as ethnic minorities. People of color that I never used in Hong Kong or in general Asia. So I believe everyone here should have some feelings on what I'm just said, but it's the introduction. So I am going to talk a little bit about like big picture on race and racism from my perspective, and then narrow down to my personal experience and what we can do and some resources I want to share. So I think one big thing first is about the reason. Actually, it's not recent. Actually, it's this couple of years. The anti-Asian hate crime. So I think why it got the attention is one of the reasons is back to the more than half years ago, the shooting in Atlanta. Asian American dead, and people start to really focus on this racism, particularly on Asian American, and it triggered lots of public attention. And I think I also watch a YouTube video. I can actually put all the resources in the chat right now. So the first one, Alice Choi, who is a teacher in NYC, and she has a public speech about her experience in teaching in school, what her children talk to her. And one of the quotes from her is, she said that a student told her how many people needed to die or get hurt before there is a change from a children, from a kid. So I don't want to elaborate, but you can think about it. And so race is a very serious topic, especially in the United States. And the second link I share is there is a lot of people, Asian people, they get hurt or attacked, get killed, harassed in different parts of United States. This New York Times, you can see a list of this couple of years, what's happening on the anti-Asian hate crime. So, and then I'm gonna share some like resources at school or in the community. So based on community, I would say like you can take a look at the third link I share for these bystander intervention. So if you see any racism or harassment or hate crime happen, what we can do, you can check it out. It talk about like, I know most of us like maybe afraid of when we really see a racist, a crime, a harassment happen in front of us. We don't know what to do. We are worried to get in trouble. But in that link, talk about 4D approach, like something actually we can do. I will not talk too much here, but you can check it out, some resources. And before I talk more about the resources, I also want to talk about a personal story. So I think last year, I went to NYC to Kandan. So I remember like there's a lot of people, you know, like Manhattan, like celebrate for the New Year, and then some some folks near me yell at the people around her that go back to your country. I don't know where you're from. Japan, Korea, China, I don't know, but go back to your country. Here is United States, here is America. Okay, that's exactly her tone and the wordings. So I'm not sure whether whose audience she's talking to. Maybe not me, maybe not my friend, but that's my personal story. And talk about race and xenophobia, maybe. And then also there's a lot of resources at BC or the community, just like what I mentioned. So in our school of social work, we do have some support group and talk about particularly on the anti-Asian hate crime. So feel free to let us know if you are interested to join us. And also I believe like in general BC or OISS have different kind of like processing group according to the hate crime or like different support group. And last but not least, our resources is that our international student health insurance actually cover us to see therapists, remote therapy maybe, for free. I think they are fully covered, but I need to double check, but there's some resources for everyone, like in case you face different kind of stress or depressed, no matter because of academic or because of some racist hate crime or whatever kind of negative experience you have at BC or in general in Boston, feel free to really find someone to help. And remember to have some self-care for yourself about racism, and think about your own identity, think about your whole experience, like, okay, from your country, like majority, you are the majority and come here. So what's the changes? What's your class? What's your culture? Any privilege you have? Some background you have? Think about it and talk to someone you trust. It can be someone here. It can be someone from your home, some friends, family, neighbors. And last but not least, so actually I'm the Vice President and also Diversity Coordinator of GISA, Graduate International Student Organization. Although we call graduate, but we welcome everyone in our BC community to join our event, and feel free to reach out to us. We are a student organization to support students. When you face different kind of discrimination, injustice, no matter in classroom, your teacher, your still classmate or whatever, your friends or community, when you buy grocery, you face anything negative, you can talk to us. We have an Instagram page, GISA, you can find us, GISA _ BC. And also we are going to have a social event also in IEW week in this Friday at 3 p.m. in Murray House. So if you are interested, feel free to also send a message to me and reach out to me. I will give you more information about it. We are going to watch a movie called Go to America. And it's a comedy, it's a classic. So, you know, just hang out with each other. And what we want to do is really to support each other and networking. And yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, Patrick, especially for sharing those resources and those links in the chat. So I'm going to pause for a minute before we potentially move on to another topic and just ask if either anyone on the Zoom has any questions for the panelists on either of the topics we've covered so far, COVID-19 or racism, or if want to give the opportunity if Anna or Carolina want to add anything at this point. Just wanted to take that pause and before we potentially move on to a final topic. But if anyone on either has I see some people putting some wonderful comments in the chat, so thank you very much. But if anyone has a question, you can either put it in the chat or just raise your hand or put your video on and ask a question. Okay. Okay, well, if you think of anything, please feel free to do that. We still have a few more minutes. So I'd like to circle back to the issue of immigration. A lot of we touched on immigration a little bit in terms of how COVID-19 impacted our students. There's a number of students on the panel who were supposed to be here last year, either as first-year graduate students or as freshmen who were not able to come, and really understanding the impact of COVID on immigration. And there are other immigration issues, even in a non-pandemic, that our international students are dealing with on a regular basis that the general BC community is not even aware of. And so I'm going to circle back to that part of our outline. I'm confusing our panelists a little bit, and maybe talk a little bit about that. And so why don't we start with Anna. We haven't heard Anna's voice for a little bit. You were going to talk a little bit about some of your experiences applying for visas in different countries, and what that has been like for you. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been an international student for most of my life, so I've been through some process of student visas, one being the US student visa, another one in the Netherlands, and another one in the UK, specifically for Scotland. And it's very interesting how each country deals with it, because I think the hardest one for me was actually the UK one, because they took my passport and they sent it to Colombia, to Bogota, because they needed to do it there, not in Brazil. It was strange. And that was the one that I needed like most documents. I needed like much more documents that I needed for example, the Netherlands one. The easiest one was the Netherlands, was almost all online. It was super easy. They did not require many documents, and differently from the US, that the school, for the US student visa, the school sends you a form and you need to do everything. In the Netherlands, the school do most of the work for the visa for you. So it is much easier. Especially the US student visa, the interview part is the most important part. And there are actually very little bits and tricks. So your visa most likely get approved. So if you dress a certain way, if you have a certain English accent, if you have like, if your accent is more American, you're more likely to get the visa. If you are dressed more from like a rich family, like they want you to look like someone that will not stay in the US after you graduate, basically. And it's very interesting for me, because every time I went there, the person right in front of me, for all of my visas in my entire life, I don't know what happens, but every time I try to get a visa, the person right in front of me get denied. And it's very scary to see someone get their visa denied right in front of you, because it makes it real that your visa can be denied, you know, like it is a real fear. So yeah, and all of this person that got denied in front of me, I can see a pattern, and I try not to repeat what they did. It's a great way for me to know how to act. And if you're like, you need a lot of documents, but when you get to the interview itself, depending on the person, they ask you more documents or not. Like I didn't need to, I just needed to show my I-20 and DS-160, I think. But the person in front of me had to show the financial statement, the letter of approval of the university, and much more documents that they didn't even tell us that we needed. It is very, like, it is a lot of documents. But fortunately, I got approved from every visa that I tried. I tried to be really polite with the person, say thank you, hi. Like they are the ones that it will tell you if you can get into the country or not. So you better be the most polite you have ever been. Like never deny them anything. Just give it to them, you know. So yeah, it is at the same time very scary to be in an interview, but at the same time, when you get that like approval like step. It is very rewarding. But I have to admit that UK one was very scary for me because I spent it, I think 2 months without my passport because it wasn't called, and like it took a while to get back because in Brazil, our mail is not, it is a state, it's public, it is not private. So they go on strikes a lot. So the online shopping culture does not exist. So they went on strike and it was awful to get the visa, but unfortunately I could get all 3 of them.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. A lot of folks don't realize what international students go through just to get a visa to come here. And I'm sorry we don't have the system of, I think you said the Netherlands where they did it all for you, but it doesn't quite work that way in the US, but we're so happy you're here. Thank you. And Alice, you were going to talk a little bit about how international students have to think about what they major in because of their immigration status, and then a little bit about the work regulations in terms of the major, et cetera. So would you like to go next? Yep.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just speak a little bit about like as international students with F1 status, like for example, just for me, I am international student and I have a F1 visa, status visa. So if I want to work after graduation, I need to apply for the optional practical training, which is OPT. And that allows me to work within a field that directly relates to my major, psychology, for 1 year. And that's just something that international students should keep in mind as they move forward and to design their career plans. And in terms of major choices, I know that because like international students have to work in a career area that directly relate to their major, and this is written in the OPT and OPT training as well. And I think, but so if, for example, if you really want to work in a bank, you might prefer to like major in finance in CSUM, or like work in the field of doctor. You might like apply for biology or neuroscience major that directly lead you to that field. But just personally speaking, I focus more like for my whole 4 year, I focus more on my like course exploration, and I really follow the passion that the school like wants us to bring about when in terms of choosing classes. Even though I'm a psychology major, I took electives in creative, like in some acting, music, and philosophy, and I really enjoy those classes because those humanity classes really diversify my mindsets and to let me to see what I'm really passionate about, and just brings me joy in terms of the like intellectual exploration. But I know that everything comes a cost. Like if I choose one thing, that then I might give up certain things. So I know that there are not so many career fields that directly relate to psychology, especially if I want to like make a master in a humanity area like philosophy or English. The career field is narrower, even more in the US for international students. So my plans for a career plan currently is work in Shanghai, China. I done that. I tried to do that like last summer, and it feels great. And I could still like use English in Shanghai, and like both English and Chinese, and like to work with students in China. And that's kind of my career plan for now. But this semester, I add some of the volunteer teaching works in the US, and I even worked in a public school for teaching the children music. Even though I'm not paid for that, but I think those are all experiences for me to work in the US. And I think just moving forward, just like doing what I can do and still focus on like my exploration and intellectual growth. But I also keep in mind of the practical sides in both countries. And for now, like at least like for paid jobs, I think in China mostly. Yeah. And just that's all my sharing about for undergraduate students who want to work in the US and moving forward.
Thank you, Alice. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize BC is so much on go with your passion and the liberal arts education. And I was Alice's pre-major advisor, so we spent quite a bit of time talking about, and I'm glad she's going with, you know, her passion and exploration, but international students do have that extra burden that if they do want to work in the US, it does have to be related to their field of study, but there are other options like, you know, going back to your home country or to another country to work as well. So we only have a few minutes left. Patrick, if you just want to briefly talk about kind of your personal career path related to immigration. We only have a few minutes, but I wanted to give you the opportunity to do that, and then we'll wrap up. Thank you.
I want to save the time for other people, but just one thing is feel free to reach out to me if you want to know more. So I am a doctoral student, and I can share my experience, like how academic is road as an international student in the United States. So we are not in like H1, the normal H1B road to try to stay in the States. And also just think about like, what do you really want? Why you want to stay here? It's just something everyone need to think about. If you really want to stay here for a longer time.
Thank you. Again, I appreciate, I'm trying to kind of look at the comments in the chat as well. We have some other international students on sharing their experiences, so please take a minute and look in the chat as well, and we appreciate you sharing those there. Again, I want to ask if anyone has any questions or any other comments that they'd like to share, or if any of our panelists want to comment on anything that any of the other panelists said, or just anything left before we kind of wrap up today. We are recording this session and it's going to go on the IEW website. And so even though we have a relatively small group tonight, it will be on the IEW website and people will be able to access there. And we're also, OISS actually has a YouTube channel, believe it or not. We had to do that last year when we were in COVID and had to put a lot of our programming on there so people could see then. We're going to put it on there as well. So your wonderful experiences that you've shared will be beneficial to a lot of other people beyond just who are on the Zoom tonight. But does anyone have any last questions or comments that they'd like to share?
Okay, just one last comment.
Sure.
Yeah, I just spoke about my experiences being a Black man, maybe from the point of view of racism. I want to call upon everyone for all of us to join hands together and speak against racism, because I see this world as a beautiful place, and people say that variety is the spice of life. Many of us come from different backgrounds, we have different color experiences, and how I imagine when people of different colors, people from different nations' experiences come together, I think we'll be able to make the world a better place. I ask and everyone to join hands together, and then so that we can speak against racism unambiguously. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's the perfect way to end this panel. I am a strong believer that variety is the spice of life. So I love that. So thank you so much to all of our wonderful panelists. I really appreciate you sharing your personal perspectives and experiences. They were just so interesting to hear. And I know other people, again, will benefit from that. And I thank those of you who were able to join us tonight and sharing some of your also perspectives and experiences in the chat. And we look forward to hopefully having more of these panels of international students in the future, so the larger BC community can understand a little bit better more of your experiences. And one last plug for IEW, again, bc.edu/IEW. We still have quite a few programs happening. Did I say that right? /IEW. Yep. We still have it's getting late. Let's start. We still have quite a few programs happening throughout the rest of the week, and even into a couple of other weeks throughout November. Educational programs, social programs. Patrick mentioned the GISA event later this week. So we hope you go on the website and check those out. And thank you so much again to everybody for participating in this IEW event, and stay well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for organizing.
Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Hmm.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Hmm.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
I always feel like I have to stay on till everybody logs off, but anyway.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
So,
we're good.
yeah, that was great. That was great. I wish there were more people on. I mean, it was mostly other international students, which is, kind of sad, but we will put it on the IEW website and also on YouTube, and hopefully others will watch it, because I really think, like, the people who are not international students at BC need to hear a lot of what was said, especially, the parts about the racism part was really powerful. So thank you so much, Nicole and Laura, for all your help with the program. And it's another thing. Yep.
And thank you for being the panelist or the facilitator for the panel. That was great.
Sure. Yep. Cool. Well, we'll see you all tomorrow then. Have a good night.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.